Hi, listeners. It's Christie here. I want to share some exciting news with you guys. In addition to the incredible guests that we have on the show, we want to try out a new format that involves more of you, our wonderful listeners. So often when I'm doing these interviews and just talking to people in general, I'll hear a story and think to myself, I have a quote that I feel like would help that person. And so that's what I want to try out with you. I want to hear your stories. I want to hear what's going on in your life. Maybe it's a breakup, a loss, a career change, a life change, friendship struggles, you name it. Tell me your story and I will give you a quote that I think might help you through it. All of the stories are going to be shared anonymously, of course, and they can be submitted through the link in the show notes. I can't wait to hear from you. Selena Samuela, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're so excited. For all of you who do not know, Selena is a Peloton instructor. She teaches strength, running, and boot camp classes, correct?
Yeah, and boxing
yes.
too.
And how could I forget about the boxing? We have to touch on that in the episode as well, because you have a very fascinating history with boxing and stunt doubling, just all these interesting things I figured out when I was doing research. Is there anything I missed? What do you tell people when you introduce yourself?
I actually can't even remember the last time that I've introduced myself to a new person. For those of you that don't, it's like, seriously, that sounds so lame. And aside from members, of course, that come to the studio.
I love it.
Gosh, that sounds so lame.
No, that does not at all.
But I'm a new mom. So I gave birth to a baby boy 8 months ago. And,
so
I'm a full-time working mom. So I'm in this zone right now where I come to work, I do my thing, and then I zip back home and spend as much time with my baby as I can.
I really do feel that. My husband and I are always like, I think we're done with meeting new people. We're just going to lean into the people we know. It's kind of exhausting. So I completely understand that. Well, hopefully Peloton instructor encapsulates where you're at right now. Tell us a little bit about how you got there.
Gosh, it's such a long story, but it's a super fun story. So I was living in Hawaii, loving life, but I felt like I'm going to go way back here. Are you okay with that?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
Yeah, we want it all. Yes.
I was living in Hawaii. I was loving life, surfing, going to school, doing the whole thing. And it was wonderful, but there was something missing. And I always had this itch that I wanted to be a performer. I always loved writing. And I had this dream that I was going to be an actor, a writer, director. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go. Let's take the chance. Let's go to New York. I took the leap. I came to New York City. And things, New Yorked me, I went on tons of auditions, and it just turned out that I was just, auditioning and working 4 jobs. I had a bajillion side hustles, dog walking, bartending, all the things. And eventually I ended up in fitness. And the way that I ended up in fitness was because I always enjoyed fitness. I've always been a super active person, as I mentioned, Hawaii, surfing, outdoorsy. But I, in the process of wanting to kind of get my foot in the door, and I was trying to get my SAG card, I had a friend who was a stunt coordinator, and he's like, hey, Selena, you're super fit and pretty good athlete, and I was doing boxing for fitness at the time. He's like, why don't you get into stunts? And I was like, all right, cool. Let's do that. So I really started focusing on my boxing because that's what I was doing and perfecting my fight technique. And then I went to school for stunt driving and was just really focused on this thing. And, I didn't really get a lot of jobs as a stunt double either, but in the interim, I ended up becoming a really good boxer, and I started competing as an amateur boxer. And that kind of led me into the world of being a fitness instructor. Someone recruited me to teach at a fitness studio that was centered around boxing in New York City. Then I ended up getting my I became a certified personal trainer, started training people one-on-one. Again, still kind of side hustling, but then it just became my full career. I ended up landing at Peloton that way because Rebecca Kennedy was out looking for new instructors for the new Peloton tread. And she was a client of mine. She came to my classes. She loved my classes and asked me to audition. it was just that perfect marriage of all the things that I've been, focusing on over the years. I'd done on camera work, and I'd, been loving fitness my whole life. And it was just boom, like kind of magic. It's always followed my heart, and it landed me exactly where I needed to be.
That is a wonderful story. It's so crazy to me how, like, you have to have some time pass before you can see, though, that life was just like slowly pushing you along to where you needed to be, even though it probably felt at the time like all of your plans were getting derailed.
Yes, totally.
It's just, it always like seems to work out like that. And you just, all of the disappointments usually open a door to something. And in your case, it worked out.
Absolutely. And like, I kind of have this attitude about life now that whenever I try something new, even if it seems like it's totally out of the ordinary or outside of the box, or somebody tells you it's off brand, doesn't matter. If you have a curiosity or an interest in it, and you really like, it's truly like fulfilling something in you that like feels feels fulfilling or feels whole. Like, you just give it your 100%. Like, even if you think you don't belong or whatever, like, screw all that. Like, just go in it whole ass,
Yes. See, you're already dropping wisdom, and I haven't even gotten to the wisdom parts. I knew this was going to be a good interview. So I love that. Already we've got one banger of a quote to start out with. We're going to ask the question of the show. What is the best advice that you've ever gotten?
I've gotten a lot of advice in my life. I think as a new mom, the one that's like just on the brain right now, I remember folks saying to me, and this is, again, especially for people who are younger, or folks who are not even younger necessarily, but folks who are maybe considering having kids in the future, but it could go for anybody. Like, whatever that thing is that you really want to do, and you think that you don't have time for it, you have time for it.
I love that.
Wait, you have time for it. Like, and do it now. Don't wait. Do it now.
Love that. I've been thinking a lot about the fact that I think there's a saying or quote that says, like, you really, like, it's whatever you prioritize. So if you prioritize something, like you're saying, you will always find the time for it. It's like one of my biggest pet peeves when people say, I don't have the time. Like, you do. It's just not a priority. Like, you'll find the time.
Bingo.
I love that. Tell us a little bit about this. I wanted to touch on this too. This journey of motherhood. You just had a baby in March, and you also got married. You had a baby in December. You got married in March.
That's right.
So it was a quick turnaround. I was reading some interviews that you did, and you're like, not exactly our plan. What has that journey been like?
Yeah. Again, like, I kind of heard from folks like, it could take a while, like, don't expect it to happen right away. And for some folks it does, and you can't really predict those things. And we were just so fortunate. I can't say anything other than like, thank you to the universe for this amazing blessing. But I didn't expect it to happen as quickly, and I'm incredibly blessed that it did.
What's the journey been like? And going back to your quote, how have you found that, like, you have to prioritize different things and find time for different things that you maybe thought you didn't have time for?
I think, with motherhood, you really learn how to time manage in a way that, like, maybe you didn't really have to before. And then that really does show you how much time you actually have, and how much time you used to have before pre-baby too,
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, certainly, especially, like, if I could go back in time and say this to myself pre-baby, I would do it like over. I would say it to myself every single day, like every morning before I woke up. Like, I would tell myself that every single morning. But even now, like, you're absolutely right. It's like, if you think you don't have time for it, it's probably not important enough to you, and like, there's no reason to stress that you're not doing it, right? Because, like, what's the point? Then you're just like living in a cycle of stress. Like,
no, absolutely.
Either do it or let it go. If you feel like you have this curiosity, like you want to run a marathon, like, sign up for the race. Like, decide if you are going to do a 16-week program or 12-week program, and just do it. And I'm working, even if it's scary. So I'm actually working on a project right now. I can't talk too much about what it is, but it's
Sneak peek, though, little teaser.
Yeah, well, I'm working on a project right now. And something that I have always wanted to do. And I put it off thinking like, I don't have time for it. I'll do it when X. I'll do it when X. Or maybe I'm not, or maybe I need more to be a little more sage before I do this. And I need more. I always had some sort of excuse, and an opportunity came my way. And I again could have used the excuse of, oh, I'm a mom now and I work full time. I don't have time to, but I've blocked out 2 hours a week where I focus only two separate days, an hour each day, where I focus only on that thing. And I'm about halfway through this project right now. And I think and I'm so excited that I'm doing whatever the hell happens with it is irrelevant, because the lessons that I'm learning through this journey are just like so juicy and so good.
That's amazing.
Also, another thing is that so I'm running the New York City Marathon this year. I've never run the New York City Marathon before.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I haven't run a marathon since 2019. I think that's another thing that I'm like finding it's hard to do. It's hard to find the time to block out during the day. Again, being a new mom and working full time, but it's there. The time is there. You just get up early and you freaking do it. You just do it.
No, I mean, it's really valid. I think it's like a piece of advice that people are like, oh, that's like kind of harsh. Like that's kind of hardcore. Like some people really don't have the time. And there are like definitely nuances to this. Like there are people that just do not have that kind of time. But for most people, I'd say there's a lot of flexibility in how we spend our time. And like I even know with me and my workouts and my Peloton workouts, when I go do like my 30-minute rides, I'm like, sometimes it's hard to get myself hyped up. And I'm like, well, I could be on my phone for 30 minutes and that'll just pass. Or I can go do a workout that'll make me feel exponentially better. And like that time is going to be that time no matter what. So it's really just what we choose to do with it.
Absolutely. I think you're right. There's definitely an element of privilege. Time, time is different for the hours people work, for instance, versus it could be so different from person to person. But I think you're absolutely right, especially in our age. Like, how much time do we spend swiping?
Yeah.
Through social media, or even and it's like it's prioritizing. There are 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. Well, and that's not to say that the time swiping isn't like rest time is also important time. Like that's also an important thing to prioritize. So to everyone listening, we're not trying to hate on like going on Instagram for a little. I go on TikTok. That's like how I unwind, and I just watch like the funny videos.
Funny, cute videos. Dogs like doing adorable things. Cats like.
It's important for your mental health. And that in itself is something I think you have to learn to prioritize too. So it's not saying like just prioritizing working out and being a go-getter, but every aspect of your life. I mean, you've probably become a master at that. You're a mom, you're an instructor, you have all these side projects. How do you find time? Are your days super structured, or do you let yourself be flexible?
And so I think that's actually where maybe where I sounded so hardcore is more just like I'm just more structured than I was before. I used to have a little bit more of the go with the flow kind of day-to-day stuff, and I just don't have that anymore, and I'm okay with that. That's a choice that I've made because I'm taking on so much. Like, if I didn't want to take on, and you know what, this is a season too. Like right now I'm taking on a lot, and I'm doing so much in the season, and it's awesome. And hey, I might get done with this race and I might be like, I'm gonna No,
I love that. There are seasons for sure. Because you can't keep at that level forever. You'll get totally burned out.
You'll get burned out. Well, and maybe some people can, but at least maybe some people can, but at least, for me, I definitely have found myself like in and out of seasons like that. Right now, I'm in a super structured season. I have like my calendar is pretty full, and I am really on top of when I start and stop things.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, I have a certain window to train for my marathon. And if I don't hit my training run in that window, guess what? I'd end up losing my training that day. So I'm very, very good about showing up and like
Yeah. Yeah.
just
No.
getting it done.
Yeah.
For now. But like, yeah, after November, it might not be as there might be a little bit more free flow to my day to day. I might say, oh, you know what? I didn't I didn't I didn't get my boot camp in this morning. I'll just do it this evening, or I'll do it tomorrow, or
Yeah. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I want to go back to the big life changes you had in 2022, marriage, motherhood, because those are big parts of your life other than being a Peloton instructor. Is there a best piece of advice you got during either of those big changes, like as a new mom or just before getting married, that really stuck with you?
I think maybe one of the most important lessons I've learned is not to assign yourself an experience around motherhood, especially before it happens. And I'm going to tell you a personal story on that. So before I gave birth to my son, I did just that. I assigned myself an experience. I said, okay, well, Selena, after you give birth, I want, you're going to want to feel, like you want to get back into movement again, but I don't want you to, this is me talking to myself. I don't want you to focus on body image. I don't want you to get fixated on the snapbacks and da. So let's sign you up for something challenging, so you'll have a goal, like a challenging race, so you'll have a goal to work towards rather than fixating on your body. And so I said, all right, what have you not done yet? You haven't done a triathlon. All right, let's sign up for a half Ironman. So,
oh my God,
this is an absurd thing to do, but I didn't understand that. So I signed myself up for a half Ironman 6 months after for 6 months after my due date. I go ahead, I give birth, I like become a new mom. I'm not really thinking about the triathlon. And then 2.5 months after I give birth, I'm like, well, this is about the time that I should start training. And I realized very quickly that I wasn't anywhere near being ready to be able to train for a race like that. And so I had this idea of what my postpartum experience was going to be like. And I really assigned myself this, and it was a big shock to find out that that wasn't at all what my experience was like. And this thing that I had all, great intentions, like the reason behind this signing up for this thing were, really well intentioned. But it really didn't make sense for me. I had, and it might make sense for somebody else, but it certainly didn't make sense for me. And I had to pull out of it. I had to pull out of that race. And that was the right thing for me to do, for myself, for my body, for my mental health, but certainly for my physical health. I just was not anywhere close to being ready to train in that capacity.
Yeah. I love that idea of not assigning yourself an experience. Do you feel like there's so many other facets of life where we assign ourselves experiences?
I mean, I like that. It sounds like there should be, right? Let me try to think off the top of my head. I think so. I think maybe going to college is a big one.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
I'm thinking of it. I feel like there's so getting married, going to college, even if you go to college, if you pursue a certain career after that. I think our entire lives is assigning ourselves certain experiences with the expectations that have been put on us by others.
Totally.
I just wonder how different we would live if we just freed ourselves from those assignments and just let it be, whatever it was.
Let it be. Yep.
Yeah. I really love that. This also reminds me of this video that you posted on Instagram that I loved, where you talked about how you're like, it really made me sad. It makes me sad that everyone keeps commenting and asking me how I got my body back after my baby and how I got rid of my mom pouch. And you were like, it's still here and I like love it. And this is part of this incredible journey that I've had having a kid. And I thought that was so beautiful. Do you just talk about that a little and share like the message that you wanted to send and that you continually send to people about how obsessed we are with our bodies?
That message is about, giving yourself grace, but also just honoring the badassery of motherhood. I stopped myself. I stopped. I was in the mirror, I think, in that video, and I'm like kind of, looking at myself, and I'm just like in a way, like hyping myself and hyping all moms up, like going like, y'all, like we literally grew a human inside of us. Yeah.
Truly.
And then and then offered it to the world as like this great offer and gift. Like it is a true miracle. It's the miracle of life. We did that.
Yeah.
So like to have any kind of bad energy towards that part of your body that was such a huge part in that creation, like, nah. Like we got to shift that. We got to turn that around. We got to like change that narrative.
No, absolutely. I loved your commentary on that. It's truly the most iconic thing that a person could do, really. And yet we assign ourselves the experience of getting back into shape like the second after we have a baby. And it's just insane when you think about it.
Yeah. It's wild.
Completely insane. Clearly fitness and the way you look is a huge part of your life, of your career. Do you have a message for maybe people who have really been struggling with the connection between fitness and the way they look, and maybe only working out to look a certain way, or being disappointed when they work out a lot and don't look a certain way?
As cliche as it sounds, there's many times as you've heard it, it really has worked for me in my postpartum journey and in this kind of, in the new body that ultimately I ended up stepping into as a pregnant person as well. Like the focus is strong and healthy. The focus is strong. Like I love feeling strong. I love when I like lift heavy. I love running fast. I love that like endorphin release, that pump, that the feel, like when people talk about a pump, like I love that. Like maybe I sound a little bit like a hardo right now, but I really love that. And so that's what I just looking for. I'm going for that. Like I'm looking for those feelings. Those I want to focus on that feeling versus on what I look like. Like I want to focus on really putting the emphasis on feeling a certain way versus looking a certain way. And that's just where and even if I stray, and like we all do, right? Like nobody's perfect. I haven't like completely mastered like being totally zen at all time and giving myself grace at like 100% of the time. But whenever I catch my thoughts going there, I try to shift it directly back to that feeling. Because honestly, it does feel better. Because the other stuff is also can be like so subjective, right? Like how something looks. Like the old adage, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Like who the hell is to say what's beautiful and what's not? And like, screw it. Like, but you know what you feel like and what feels good, that you can know 100%. There's no, there's no arguing that. You could argue a painting and be like, I think it's beautiful. And somebody else is like, I think it's crap. You can argue that all day, but what you feel, like there's no arguing it. So focus on that. Focus on what you feel.
I love that. Okay, finish us off with, if you have a favorite quote, or are you someone who like writes quotes or mantras and like leaves them on Post-it notes or something? I don't know. Some people have those little things they do with positive affirmations.
Totally. I have one that I've been using a lot in my classes lately, and it's you can't choose or change who you've been, but you can choose who you want to become. And then I like to add, who you become is a product of what you do in the now. So while you can't really, you can't control the future, but you can certainly control what you're doing right now. So everything that you're doing now, the choices that you're making now, the habits that you're creating right now are going to dictate that future you, what that
I
future
love
you
that.
ends up looking like, and what that future you, how that future you exists.
I love that. Okay, wait, I also forgot that I love asking this one, but do you have a least favorite quote or a least favorite piece of advice?
Well, I just feel like, when someone gives me trash, I just try to throw it out,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
like, yeah, I threw it in the trash. But this is probably totally off topic, but
That's
someone once
okay.
told me, to cut my hair short, and that was probably the worst piece of advice, because this is gonna sound really weird, but like, I kind of have a small head relative to my body, so like, I just looked like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Like, it was like a full on hero in a half shell vibes.
Well, you are beautiful, so I cannot see short hair changing that. But,
It
sometimes
just wasn't like, it was fun. It just like wasn't, I don't know. It just like, it wasn't the best.
I think the lesson there is probably just don't listen to other people, because generally what makes you feel good. And maybe, but I don't know, people can be really convincing, especially when girls get on the train of like, you should do this to your hair. You should. And sometimes it just does not turn out the way you want it to.
Totally.
It's a good piece of bad advice, man. Really good. Well, Selena, I mean, you mentioned a little bit a project coming up. Tell us what we should be looking out for with you and your career, or anything going on at Peloton. Tell us where to follow you. We want to support.
Yeah, totally. So you can follow me on social at Selena Samuela on Instagram. I have a TikTok now at Selena Samuela. But if you'd like to take class with me, you should download the Peloton app. If you haven't already. I teach strength, tread, boot camp, and boxing. If you don't have any equipment, you can still take class with me, because I teach boxing, shadow boxing, that requires not even a weight. It's all body weight. I can take you through some body weight strength training, which also requires no equipment. If you have some dumbbells or head to a gym, you could pick up dumbbells and take a strength class. If you head to a gym, you could take one of my running or my boot camp classes on a tread. Yeah, there's a lot out there.
I love it. I love it. If you want to feel strong, like we've been talking about, and motivated, take her classes. They are wonderful. I've taken many of them myself. Selena, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. That was fun.
This was awesome. And to all of our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to The Shift.